Getting bigger arms, how do we achieve this? This was something that I struggled with for years, still do struggle with them. Like, they're no C-bum, but they've improved quite a lot since I first started my gym journey. I think it's an area that a lot of guys will struggle with as well. Again, I know obviously genetics can play a role with it and things like that, but I see a lot of kind of people train the arms in the wrong way, and they try to exhaust themselves all the time. They pick multiple different exercises, and it's probably the wrong way to go about it. It's something I used to do all the time. So I'm gonna take you through my arm day today and show you how I actually run a split. For reference, when I say arms, I'm obviously including shoulders in there as well. So I do arms and delts as kind of a day in itself, but I'll kind of give you the reasoning behind the exercises that I do and why I do them. So yeah, just to give people context, my split at the moment is upper, lower, and then I have arms and delts. So it's a 5-day split, and I'm just running that in rotation at the moment. So come to the gym with me, let me show you how to do this workout. Give it a go yourself, see if you enjoy it or not. There's a few principles that we want to bring into it as well as the actual movements. When you look at movements themselves, you don't have to pick the exact ones I have. There's different variations, etc. But yeah, let me run you through it all and we'll take it from there. Okay, so first movement that we're going to do today is a cuffed cable lateral raise. It's probably one of my favorite exercises to really help improve your shoulders, especially that lateral head. I prefer it over a dumbbell lateral raise for a few reasons. One, it takes away that kind of grip strength. Like if you think about it, you're holding on to a dumbbell, you've kind of have to bring some grip strength in there, exerting more force, whereas with the cable, with the cuffs, you obviously have the cuff on your wrist, so it's taking away any sort of grip strength. Plus, we kind of lose tension when we come down on a dumbbell lateral raise. You're going to lose tension on the way down, whereas with a cable, there's going to be constant tension up and down, so you're just getting a little bit more from the movement. So that's what I'm going to do first. We're going to go 3 sets, 10 to 15 reps. So I will show you that there now. A great tip to imagine with your cuffed cable lateral raises as well is that when you're coming up, imagine that you're coming up and scraping your hand off against 2 walls, and you can just get that kind of full range up and back down again, and it's the best for the movement. You get that optimal contraction in on the shoulders. So yeah, top tip for that. So we're gonna go now into our shoulder press. I'm going with a plate loaded shoulder press. This is the Atlantis shoulder press, plate loaded. It is really, really good. In my opinion, Atlantis is probably one of the best equipment that you can use, but it's very rare that you can get it in some gyms. The one I train in, obviously in Dubai, is loaded with it, so I'm blessed that way. But any sort of plate loaded machine press that you have available to you is going to work here. So we'll do a warm-up set into 1 or 2 working sets, and we'll take it from there. Okay, so we're going in for 2 sets. In terms of our reps, I'm keeping it within a rep range of 8 to 14. The idea here for me, like I've been talking in previous videos, is that we want to earn the reps first before we move up on the weights. So we should get about 10 reps, maybe 11 reps here at 45, see how we get on, and we can take it from there. Okay. So we can see there, I kind of pretty much failed on that last one. Left arm a little bit stronger than my right. So weight is absolutely perfect. Getting up, I think I got up to 10 there altogether. So yeah, we'll keep it at this weight load. Okay, so we're gonna go into a preacher curl now. A big mistake that I used to do with my biceps was I'd never actually dedicate a day to improving my biceps, triceps, my shoulders. Hence why I've changed the split up now to upper, lower, and then having a specific delta and arm day. But another big thing that like I always messed up on was I would just do like 3 sets of 10 cable curls all the time, and I was only kind of training the muscle in one range of motion, in more of a lengthened range. Whereas ideally, if we want to improve our biceps, we want to be training in its lengthened range, so we're getting up and down, but also in its shortened range. So when the elbow's brought up here, it's going to train in that shortened range a little bit more. So
ideally you can grow your biceps just using two exercises, one that trains it in its lengthened range, one that trains it in its shortened range. And that's going to help you massively blow up the biceps. So we're going to go with a preacher curl first. I just have 2 sets, 10 to 15 reps, again working up that rep range or that ladder, and earning the reps before we go up the weight. So we're going to go into that now and just go with it. Okay, so that's that set done. Again, a massive thing why so many people will mess up on their biceps or not see growth is because they'll ego lift quite a lot. Like, you have to think about it, your biceps, that's literally your biceps there. Like, you're going to be doing a lot of isolation movements in order to improve them. You're not going to have that same level of strength. You're not going to be lifting as heavy as what you would with a bench press. But I think when it comes to biceps, and guys in particular, we have this kind of ego about us where we want to lift really heavy, but often enough what you'll see then is guys throwing the weight around and not keeping the rep quite strict or executing the movement quite well. And that's where you see like people just then starting to bring in other muscles in and they're not actually hitting the biceps and wonder why they can't grow it. So that's a top tip again, is like drop the weight load to execute the form a little bit more. You'll bring the intensity up that way, but you're going to hit your biceps a lot more as well. So top tip with that. Okay, so next up we have a X cable crossbody extension. Probably one of my favorite movements again for the triceps, because it's going to hit all 3 heads of the triceps. We've got our long head and a medial and lateral head. So by doing the cable crossbody, it's going to hit all 3. So yeah, it's a really, really great movement. So we're going to go in with this again, 2 sets, 10 to 15 reps. We're looking to build this up. One of the key focuses, I suppose, with this movement is that we're not using our elbows too much. We want to kind of just flare them out ever so slightly and keep them locked in that kind of position, so you're coming down full extension and then back up. And you don't, again, it's an isolation movement, so we don't want to be lifting massive weight to the point where we're using our body to actually drive it down. So you want to keep nice and tight and then drive out, extend fully, come back in, but keep that elbow in a fixed position. So I'll just take you through my set now so you can see it and kind of some form cues as such. Okay, so that's the cable crossbody done. We're now going to go back into our biceps. So as we were saying, we did the preacher curl to start off with, which was training it in its shortened range. We brought the elbow up, train it in the shortened range. We now want to go into training it in its lengthened range, so that kind of full range of motion. So again, I'm going to use the cables and I'm going to do a dual cable bicep curl. This movement, you can do it single arm. Single arm is great because you can actually give a little bit more to each side of the arm. So you can potentially better execute the movement ever so slightly. But again, it's a little bit more time consuming because you have to do one side, then the other, and so on and so forth. Today, I'm going with dual cable. Most important part about this, we want to keep the elbow pinned back slightly past our rib cage and keep it in that kind of fixed position. Again, we don't want to use our body for external force when we're lifting the rep up, because you'll see that often with a lot of guys. They'll just be lifting the biceps up like this and they're not actually fully utilizing the movement or getting the most out of their biceps. So we want to actually keep elbows locked back in a position and then train in that kind of full range while keeping our body completely still, or as still as possible. Again, this movement, you don't need to lift massive weight with it. It's an isolation exercise. So just bear that in mind, put the ego to one side. So let's get in. Okay, so we're going to now train our triceps. And what I usually do here is like an easy bar skull crusher, just to beef out like my medial and lateral heads. But yeah, it's pretty busy over the bench section over there. So I'm just going to do an overhead cable extension. Again, probably one of the best movements you can actually do is an overhead cable extension. We're going to target all 3 muscles, get a nice stretch in on it as well. Common mistake I see from a lot of people is when they're setting it up on the cables. So we can see here that I have the cable. They'll bring it right the way down and then they try to bring it up over their head. Their shoulder mobility can be quite limited, so when it's right down on the ground, they're first forcing themselves into this range of motion that they mightn't really have. So if you actually bring it up, I bring it up kind of relatively high, just underneath my chest height, but when I bring this up here, my range of motion is going to be a lot better, because you can see here I can't really externally rotate as much, so it's going to massively help from that regard, instead of dropping it all the way down and then forcing my way back. So we're just going to go into this movement. Again, we're going 2 sets, 10 to 15 reps here. really focusing in on the execution of the movement, trying to keep our body as still as we can. And again, focusing more so on, like I said, the execution over ego lifting effectively. So let's go straight into it. It was a good session. So that is pretty much the session done. We had cable lat and raises, we had our plate loaded shoulder press, we had a preacher curl, so training in the short range, into our crossbody cable push down, so we're training our triceps, all three heads been really hit there, into the dual cable bicep, so we're training in the lengthened position, and then finishing off with some overhead extensions as well. Got a bit of a pump on, so I think it's mandatory that I do some posing to finish off. Thank you for tuning in. I hope you found that useful. Guys, just keep liking the videos, subscribing to them. It obviously helps the page and I can get more and more content out for you. So yeah, really appreciate it. And into the posing we go.